Hello everybody and welcome to the Online Sociologist. My name is Ryan. In this video we're going to look at the concept of social norms, define subcategories of those norms, as well as provide some real life examples. The historical construction and everyday operation of a society or a social group is structured around an agreed upon set of rules on how its members should act and behave. Such rules are largely built from the deeper values of that group or society. These rules that govern this behavior is what is known as social norms. Now, sometimes these social norms have been made explicit by different social actors or institutions. For example, if your mother tells you not to chew your food with your mouth open, that would be an explicit transition of a social norm. Another example of an explicit norm would be the stated rules in a classroom or speed limit signs telling you how fast that you can drive your car. However, social norms can also be transferred to members of society implicitly. Such rules are not usually spoken or official and are usually transmitted through the observation of other members of society. For example, college instructors usually expect but don't explicitly state that their students come to their classrooms prepared with a notebook, pen, and textbook. Other examples might be not showing up to a backyard barbecue in a tuxedo or an evening gown, or cutting an entire line to place an order for your food. Even if social norms are explicit, we usually don't think about these rules on an everyday basis. However, we are usually reminded of them through the feedback we receive based on our adherence to or breaking of them. This is what is referred to as a sanction. Sanctions can be positive or negative, and they can be formal or informal. A positive sanction can be defined as an award for following a social norm, while a negative sanction can be defined as a punishment for breaking an established norm. An informal sanction is one that is wholly not enforced or punished by a person in authority, while a formal sanction is one that is both recognized and enforced by an authority figure. So, let's look at some examples. A positive informal sanction would be Amanda receiving a head nod from an individual for moving out of their way while walking, or Michael's teacher calling his name out in class for doing the assignment right. A negative informal sanction would be Hannah receiving a scowl from her aunt for eating with her elbows on the table, or Tanya being made fun of by her classmates because of her choice of clothing style. A formal positive sanction would be Anna receiving an Employee of the Month award for doing a good job at work, or Nick receiving an award for the mayor or from the mayor of his town for picking up litter every weekend for the past 4 years. A formal negative sanction would be Maureen receiving an F in her chemistry class because she never handed in any work, or Camilla getting a speeding ticket by the police for driving 95 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour speed zone. So, just to recap, so far we've defined what a social norm is and the explicit and implicit ways in which they reveal themselves. We also looked at the different forms of sanctions we receive from others in regards to our acting out of social norms, whether they be positive, negative, informal, or formal. Now I want to move on to different types of social norms. Sociologists usually distinguish between 4 types of social norms. These are folkways, mores, taboos, and laws. Folkways are less important and usually unspoken norms that usually stem from casual interactions. Folkways can be described as waiting in line to order food, being quiet in class when an instructor is talking, moving out of the way for others while walking on the street, or displaying the right type of manners and proper attire for certain events. Sanctions for folkways are usually informal and not consequential. It may be a head nod, a scowl, a snicker, or being called out by someone. Mores are usually more serious norms that reflect that society or group's deeper values as to what is right and what is wrong. For example, it can refer to one's religious beliefs, family values, or harbored prejudices against racial or ethnic groups. Sanctions for folkways can be more severe. Committing adultery can end in the dissolution of families, while renouncing one's religion can result in being exiled from that group. While harboring certain racial and ethnic prejudices may result in positive sanctions in some groups harboring those same prejudices, in larger society it can result in being stigmatized, as well as the loss of friends, family, and even one's job. Taboos can be defined as a norm that is extremely important in that society and whose violation can result in extreme disgust as well as repulsion and banishment. Almost universal examples of taboos are cannibalism, incest, and pedophilia. However, there are more culturally specific taboos. For example, in Jewish and Muslim religious communities, it is a taboo to eat pork. Finally, laws are formally inscribed norms that can be instituted on the local, state, federal, or international levels. While all laws are norms, not all norms are laws. For example, the mores I listed previously, such as adultery, renouncing one's religion, and being prejudiced, is not punishable by law. However, taboos such as cannibalism, incest, and pedophilia are. Examples such as murder, burglary, arson, and assault are all mores, and they are all inscribed as laws and can result in formal negative sanctions. Moreover, while the vast majority of what we may consider folkways are not inscribed into laws, some are, such as jaywalking or littering. It is very important to note that social norms change through both time and space. For example, as noted above, being racially prejudiced may be a norm and receive positive sanctions in a neo-Nazi gang, but would be considered a violation of the mores of larger mainstream United States society. What is considered the norms of a Methodist Christian church are not the same norms of your workplace. Also, what is considered a social norm in rural Thailand would not be considered a norm in a metropolitan area of the United States. Furthermore, what is considered a social norm by many people today is not the same as what was considered a social norm in the past. Think of things like norms regarding tattoos, musical tastes, television content, and much more that has changed drastically over time. There is one more thing that I would like to point out in reference to social norms, which is culture shock. Sociologists usually define culture shock as a sense of disorientation or confusion and anxiety experienced by someone who is engulfed in an unfamiliar culture or way of life. While social norms aren't the whole expanse of culture, they do make up a large part of it. Examples of culture shock can be related not only to the different languages and mannerisms, but also, let's say, to food preferences and lifestyles. Despite such shocks, sociologists always remind themselves and others to practice cultural relativism, which is assessing a culture and its norms by its own standards rather than the standards of the outside observer. Sociologists and others warn against being ethnocentric, which is judging those cultures from one's own standards. For example, in many provinces in China, pig brain is considered a food delicacy. However, for many Americans, this would not be the case. Being ethnocentric would be being reviled by the food as well as the culture that's accepting of it. A sociologist would work in judging such taste through China's own cultural and culinary traditions rather than one's own food tastes and how those tastes were shaped by one's own society. While food choice is one thing, it should be noted that there are debates over certain cultural issues and norms in some societies and whether one should practice cultural relativism in dealing with them. This includes slavery, blood feuds, child brides, and genital mutilation. So, there you have it. In this video, we define social norms and how they are conveyed implicitly and explicitly. We also went over different forms of sanctions, including positive and negative sanctions, as well as sanctions that are formal and informal. We also looked at the different types of social norms, including folkways, mores, taboos, and laws. We examined culture shock, which stems from the fact that social norms are not the same in all parts of the world, as well as over time. In addition, we touched on ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if I missed anything. I want to thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content related to the world of sociology and how it can be used not only in the classroom, but in your everyday lives. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.